Yo, what's up, guys? It's the Anime Daddy. I am back again for a One Piece chapter, and this one is big. We have a lot of huge reveals. It is sort of getting serious. Oda is dropping a lot. Now, the cover page is sort of it's sort of boring compared to the rest of the chapter. It's just Caesar arriving at the Germa with the rest of the Germa. But let's just get into it. Shout out TCB. We start off with the conversation with Vegapunk and the Straw Hats about like the ancient kingdom and the stuff that happened in the last chapter. I didn't get the review out, but we start out with all the Straw Hats like saying like what a futuristic city like this could not be made in the past. Like, you see our technology right now, that's completely false. Vegapunk goes on to say like that the ancient kingdom had been making technology and they found part of that technology on Egghead, and it made Vegapunk like realize like, okay, like there was a futuristic society before this, and the world government is probably trying to shut down the information spreading, which we get to see Vegapunk explain on later. But Robin says like, are you saying this machinery was created during the Void Century? And Vegapunk's like, you tell me. So basically saying yes. And Vegapunk goes on to talk about Robin and O'Hara, and she says like, well, Shaka, I don't know if it's a he or she. I'm just gonna say it's a he because it looks sort of like a dude, but he's like, no doubt it's a painful memory, but like 22 years ago, O'Hara got eradicated. And he says O'Hara had some, knowledge about the Void Century. There was uncovering some stuff. Clover was about to say the name of the ancient kingdom, and then he got bop, bop. But he goes on to give like just like not lore up to the Straw Hats about like stuff we already know, like the ancient kingdom got destroyed by the 20 nations that banded together, and they created the world government, and they tried to erase all the knowledge about the ancient kingdom, basically. And all the Straw Hats are like confused and shocked, like what? Like Usopp, he's like, what? Nami's like terrified. And I love Frankie's reaction. He's like, yo, this is a crazy tale, like a crazy awesome story. And then Sanji goes on to say like, Vegapunk, everybody who knows about this, and he says, gets eliminated, yeah, they all get killed. And then the Straw Hats like, why did you tell us? Usopp's like, no, I gotta get it out of my brain because, he's super worried. And he thinks if he knows this, then he's gonna get murdered or something. But Vegapunk asks, like, so tell me, Nico Robin, am I right? He says that the world government would not have, like, killed everybody on O'Hara if they weren't getting the knowledge about the ancient kingdom. Like, why would they have murdered everybody? But Robin says, like, why are you asking about this? Like, those scholars, they did, like, learn some stuff, but, like, you're from the government, wouldn't you know? And he's like, no, the government don't tell me. Like, I'm out of it. But she's like, if that's true, how could you know that there was research, like, about the ancient kingdom? And, like, because all the books were burned, like the Buster Call burned them all, but he says the will of O'Hara lives on. And we saw this in the anime still, but like, remember when they chucked the books out in the water? But he goes on to give us a story. He's like, on that day, everybody on O'Hara was murdered besides one girl. And Robin starts getting like choked up because like she doesn't want to hear about this. Like, these were all of her friends, her family and stuff. Like, her mom was murdered out there. Like, she doesn't want to hear about this. But he goes on to say like the scholars were labeled as devils and shit. And a few months after the incident, Vegapunk paid a visit. His real body paid a visit. He says that he was friends with Clover back in the past, and like he was like, I might as well leave flowers for my boy. Like, they're homies. He's like, I'll just do it as like a little gift for my boy. And Robin's like, you know Clover? Like, what? And we get to see this flashback panel of Clover, and it looks super cool. Vegapunk goes on to say that his obsession was like with the Void Century, and he was like had a super adventurous lifestyle, and like it's seen here that he probably sailed across the sea a bunch, went and saw stuff. He was an archaeologist, a world-renowned archaeologist at that point. They say he got incarcerated at least 10 times before he settled down and became like this world-famous archaeologist. But over time, the scholars came to O'Hara because, of Clover and his expertise and stuff, and it became the holy land of archaeology. Boom. That's the story of O'Hara. We get there. And then unfortunate aftermath bullshit, because they learned about the world government and what they did to the ancient kingdom and stuff. Or they just learned about the ancient kingdom. We get to see this panel of this dude with this fucking long ass head. Like, huge. And it says, when I step foot on O'Hara, Even the trees have been burned to cinder, like the tree of knowledge. He was speechless. But in the lake in the center, there was a bunch of books. So we saw this in the anime, we saw this in the manga. They were throwing books out into like the lake to make sure they didn't get burnt. And it actually paid off. There was a huge amount of books. And Vegapunk goes on to say, I could only assume that was the work of the scholars and like they were trying to ensure the future of their ship. And if any Marines were to find this, they were like too ignorant. Or if any Marines did find this, they were too ignorant to like know any significance. So Ohara won, basically. And he said he started crying. But we get to see this nice flashback of Robin and her mom and what happened on Ohara, and Robin's mom sending her away with Saul to like live, basically. And Robin's just thinking about this. She's crying, obviously, at this point because she's remembering her mom and Saul. And everybody, like, I think it's just Frankie and Sanji who are getting pissed off. They're making that Robin's starting to cry. So Robin goes on to basically confirm what Vegapunk thought, that yes, the scholars knew about the ancient kingdom and that's like why the incident happened. And she asked, where are the books at? And Vegapunk goes on to say, I really wanted to take them back to Punk Hazard, but like, you know, the Marines went to Allada, the top brass went to Allada. Robin's wiping away some tears, you know, as Vegapunk says, so instead, there were people that day that I saw. Hold up. And flashback, 22 years ago, Ohara, after the incident, a few months after the incident, and Vegapunk says someone else is visiting the debris giants, and we get his face reveal right here. We get the full reveal in a little bit, but this is what Vegapunk fucking looks like. And he's like, giants? And there are giants pulling these books out of the water. I was on to say, like, do they have any idea how important the books are? But we learn that later. And then we hear someone behind him. Hey, Vegapunk, it's been a while. Talking in his Batman voice, like in the anime, the dub gives him. As usual, that head of yours makes you stand out. And then he looks back and says, is that you? Our boy Vegapunk. And boom. This is what he looks like. A fucking idiot. Of course, Oda makes him look stupid as fuck. But we get to see Dragon again. Isn't that amazing? And he has no tattoo. This is 22 years ago. So this is 2 years after Roger's execution and the start of the Great Pirate Era. So we might be getting soon the reason why he gets a tattoo. But either way. So Vegapunk asks, like, what are you doing here, Dragon? And Dragon goes on to say, like, you know, that's my fucking line, bro. Like, why are you here? You got a big ass forehead, bro. He said, I knew Old Man Clover. Like, they were homies. And, you know, Vegapunk's like, oh, you too? Because, you know, they were homies too. And he says, like, I knew he was once a hooligan who roamed the seas. And like, he's like, but all that nonsense about him trying to destroy the world, it was all propaganda. We get to see these title cards before I go on. And it says, Dr. Vegapunk, head of Punk Hazard Laboratory, 43 years old. And then Monkey D. Dragon, head of the Freedom Fighters. Not the Revolutionary Army, Freedom Fighters, and 33 years old. So these ages are going to be important. I mean, this is 22 years, so Vegapunk's now 65. Sorry for the bad math. We get to see Dragon asks, are you worried about the giants, like, and them taking the stuff? And Dragon goes on to say that they're from Elbath, and they're fully aware of the value of the books, and that their captain was a giant that was wrapped head to toe in bandages. Important, that's important. And then Dragon goes on to keep saying, this man doing a whole full monologue. He said that Ohara sacrificed himself for those treasures and he couldn't let them be erased. So the captain of the giants with all the bandages could not let these books go to waste. And after seeing the government lackey, like you lurking about, I'm glad they're here to scoop him up. That's what Dragon says. So he's sort of throwing some fucking shade at Vegapunk for joining the world government. As you see later, he passed on joining the Freedom Fighters, but Dragon says, and he's like, it makes me sick to hear that you're one of their lackeys. Vegapunk goes on to say, like, don't be stupid. Like, your operation don't have no money. How can I make shit if I have no money? And, I mean, Dragon's like, yeah, I fucking know. Fuck you. But Vegapunk's like, the world government is an insanely huge organization. Like, they have lots of money, and they have some people that are reasonable. And he goes on to say, don't forget the goal. Like, I can't get it. I just can't sit back after this. It's too damn much. So Vegapunk, he's saying he needs to do something. He needs to get into action because, they killed his friend Clover and it was unjustified. Dragon goes on to say that he's going to raise an army, a revolutionary army, to fight the world government head on. So this is 22 years ago, and this is the making of the revolutionary army. And he says, just watch, Vegapunk, I'll change this world. So Dragon's got some master plans, we got Shanks with some big plans, and we got like Luffy with huge plans, and Blackbeard. We have like 4 huge characters that have big plans for the change of this world that are probably gonna have to go head to head. 3 of them are allies, maybe. But Dragon ends this little flashback with the will of Ohara won't die with Clover. And we get to see that within a year, Ivankov and Kuma were the founding members of the Revolutionary Army. Basically, he gathered them up and started it up. So we got some of Kuma's backstory before, and we're getting more of it tied in. I can't wait to get more expounded on. But then Nami's like, wow, Luffy's dad's so cool. Like, and then Robin's like, Professor Clover motivated Dragon? It's like, because Robin stayed with him for 2 years over the time skip. And, she's sort of connected with him. And Frankie's like, oh, that's going to blow my head up. Like, why did you modify Kuma like this? Why did he help us? And then Sean's like, damn, Eva, that bastard. But we get to see some more big shit. He says, the books from Ohara couldn't be left to be found by the government. But my curiosity compelled me to make a discreet trip to Elbath, where all the books were. He says, in other words, I took everything Ohara had uncovered and memorized it. He said, it's all in my head. He's continued their research this entire time because he is like probably Vegapunk himself, because it was his original body who did this, has a photographic memory probably, because it's stated later he has the biggest brain in all of the world. But we get to see this interesting wrapped up giant with a cowboy hat on. Yeah. And Robin says, the giant captain Saul, ain't he? And she starts crying. And Saul is confirmed to be alive now. Aokiji didn't kill him. He did use the ice time capsule on him, I'm pretty sure. But he's not dead. He's in hiding. And Robin's so happy. This was awesome. An awesome read to see this. I was like, oh, I loved Saul. But it is another shitty fake out death from Oda. I'm gonna say it again. Another fake out death. But wholeheartedly, I like it because I love Robin. But they say, thank you, Vegapunk. Thank you for not sacrifice or letting Ohara's sacrifice be in vain. I'm pretty sure that's Robin saying that. After this little heartwarming sequence, the Straw Hats start sliding as Vegapunk's walking. And their boots are moving on their own because they're magnetized to the floor, because he has this little button. And Vegapunk says, I want to show you something. But we cut away to Junkyard, where Luffy, Chopper, Bonnie, and Jinbei are. And they're trying to get the giant mech to move, and they're like, oh no, I can't get in, there's no way in. And they're trying to yell at it, Robo move and stuff. And then this thing comes out of the, I don't know, this light, I guess, or some noise comes out of the robot, and Luffy's like, oh, the robot's gonna blow. And then there's some dude just stuck to the side of it. And Luffy says there's a guy like Kiname on here, he's stuck to this shit. And I'm pretty sure it's not because of law, but either way, he says, save me, Q-Sar. I don't know what a Q-Sar or a Quasar is, I don't know what it is. But post-editing, anime, daddy. Quasar is the word, I forgot, I just looked it up. But it's a celestial body, and he's just saying some science words. But back to the video. This is an awesome panel we get later. He's like, perhaps space-time bent mid-warp, and I'm guessing he was trying to teleport and he got stuck into something. But Bonnie already automatically knows who it is. And then Vegapunk, who it obviously is Vegapunk, we just see in this page, he says, much obliged, you're Dragon's boy, right? He already knows who Luffy is because he's probably seen the papers. He's like, I knew you'd come, good job on making it. So Vegapunk already knew Luffy was gonna come sometime. Interesting. He probably knows everything, as we see later. And then he knows Bonnie, because he said, oh, Bonnie, you're so big now. And she's like, Vegapunk! She's about to go and punch him in the face. And he's floating in the air. And Luffy's like, what? Why are you floating? And he's like, all of our shoes can float. I made these things. They're pretty cool. You just press the button. And they press the button, and they start flying off in the air, rocketing in the air too far. And he said, Godzooks, we've flown too far. Save us, Q-Sar. And it says the humble genius appears, and then big name card. Vegapunk, the man with the biggest brain in the world, leader of the Navy's SSG. Boom. End of chapter. And we get to see what Vegapunk looks like now. And his head is not as big as it was 22 years ago. And he has this apple thing on top of him. It's interesting. I'm not really sure what happened to his head, but like apples sort of signify like knowledge, because like you give your teacher an apple, like type stuff. But I'll scroll down and look at these color pages. Really awesome ones. I love this one. Shout out Greshi, always amazing art. But big chapter, Dragon's motivations and lots of stuff got revealed. Vegapunk, he's just an Einstein replica, like of the picture of Einstein with his tongue out. Like Oda's just throwing some shit at us. That's amazing. But awesome chapter. Let me know what you guys thought. Like and subscribe, and peace.